Hello, sports fans. I'm Mike Beaton, and this is Mic'd Up Sports, the talk show that goes in depth with the people who build our sports community. We continue our conversation with Andrea Dubose, founder of the youth development program EmpwrHER and an assistant coach for Mounds View girls basketball. Andrea's mentorship connects her with several high school athletes, including some conference rivals, but she wouldn't have it any other way.
Not only have you integrated with this Mounds View team, you and I spoke about this back in March when we met up, how you're helping or you're trying to build this culture, because at Mounds View, kind of like when you went to school at Norman County or in your college career, you played for programs that didn't have a lot of history. You're trying to help change that culture. So what role do you take in helping build it up?
So I'd say it's definitely a team effort with our coaching staffs. Ashley Ansel, she's a great head coach. We have Cameron Malum, who's the JV head coach, and then Sam Graff, who's our JV assistant. It's a team effort where we're sitting down and we have fruitful conversations on where we see our program going, what things need to be implemented in order for us to get them there. Last year we started doing a weight training program in season. I'm hoping that grows this year, because basketball isn't just a physical game. There's a mental aspect to it too, because when seasons can get long and drawn out. If you're not having the best season, like mentally, that takes a toll on you. You need to be able to handle both aspects, both the mental and the physical. And so some of the things that we were trying to do last year is implement skills sessions or skills training in some of our practices. Let's take 30 to 45 minutes to focus on skill development, and then we can spend the other time working on plays and doing other things as a team. So I think we're moving in the right direction. I do. Ashley and I came in as new coaches to a program where we had, at the time, 6 seniors getting ready to graduate. So we were going to be losing a large part of our team. Just this last year, we had 2 seniors graduate, Lizzie Calls and Chloe Whalen. And then this is like Lindsey Becker, Katie Manicki's, and Claire Dalton's year. But I think over time, we have definitely shifted. We've shifted the culture, and it's taken time. This is year 3 for us. Again,
UConn wasn't built overnight.
It's not going to be built overnight.
Right. Not even the Lynx dynasty. It took them a year, and then Maya Moore dropping
time
on their lap to take off, but that required some patience as well.
It takes time and patience, and it's just about the team, the girls. Do they understand that? Are we all on the same page? Are we all aligned that this isn't going to happen overnight? But if you guys are willing to put in this work over the next 2, however long you have left, you may have 1 year left. Are you willing to put in the work to ensure that this culture shifts even after you've gone? Even after you've gone, have you left that? What do you want Mounds View's program to be remembered for?
And I know you pointed to Stillwater's program when we last spoke as an example, because up until Sarah Scalia's senior season, they didn't have much history, just 2 state titles, and then lo and behold, they become one of the most popular teams in the state when Carlin came in. So, you're right, and I have to imagine it's not easy to convince them of that patience when you can transfer. Even with the rules in place, it's pretty easy to make a move to a school that maybe has a lot of success, and then you see programs like Hopkins and De La Salle that do consistently well, and it can be a challenge, I think, to convince some of these kids who maybe haven't had that taste of what it's like at the top to buy in and help build up the program the way Hopkins did all those years ago, and even what Stillwater has done now to turn from a team that no one really paid any attention to look out, these kids are good.
But I think Willie has done a great job with that team. He's done a great job with Stillwater. He has the girls buy-in, and they go to bat for him every time they step on the court, and we're getting there. We're getting there at Mounds View.
And you have a girl of your own who certainly is helping you get there in Lindsey Becker. You've gotten to work with her for 2 years, and everyone just speaks so highly of her as a player. How fun has it been to be a part of her development? She's led the state in blocks the last couple of years. I don't know if she'll make a run at a steals record of her own. I'm sure you're working on that, but how fun is it to see someone put in that kind of effort and help put a spotlight on a school that doesn't have a big history in the sport?
It's a lot of fun, and Lindsey is a great kid. I have enjoyed coaching her these past couple of years. When you initially meet her, it's like, oh, this is a kid who's extremely shy. And, you know.
We were trying to get some info out of her, I remember, and she was questioning her whole life choices, or like, who's your favorite musician? It took a little while, but.
But once she warms up, she's coming out of her shell. And to see her after a couple of years to slowly start coming out of her shell, Ashley and I spoke with her over the past few years, wanting her to be a vocal leader. Lindsey Becker she's a person who leads by example. So she'd get out there and do the hard work, but she wouldn't speak much. This year, she's definitely come out of her shell. She's a lot more vocal. Watching her growth and development has been awesome. She's been an inside player in the post all this time. Last year,
she hit a couple of threes this past year, too.
She wanted to start working on her outside game. She got some workouts from us. She got in the gym on her own, and she developed on her own. She was adamant about, hey, I've been playing inside. I need to become a more well-rounded player. And she's done that. She's put in the work, and she's done it.
She has indeed. And Willie Taylor, Stillwater's head coach, I remember when I was prepping for that Stillwater Mounds View game, even though the Ponies won by 40 points, Willie came up to me and said, Lindsey could go Division I someday. What does that mean for you, and what do you think that says about her evolution when you have an opposing team's coach, one of the most esteemed figures in the state, giving off that kind of praise to someone like Lindsey Becker?
I think Lindsey is probably one of the most underrated players in this state. And I think that's partly because Mounds View doesn't have this big program like a Hopkins. But what I think that she's done for our program, being that she is the player that she is, she started to slowly shine a light on Mounds View. So I would actually attribute that to her. Yes, we're her coaches, but I'd attribute that to her and who she is, her work ethic, her getting in the gym on her own outside of our practices, to become the player that she is. When she wants to work on something specifically and she doesn't know where to start, she knows how to come to us and say, hey, I want to develop an outside shot. What do I need to do? I want to work more on my handles. Can you write up a workout for me? I attribute that to Lindsey. And I wholeheartedly agree with Willie. I do think that she's a D1 player. Yes, we can all continue to grow and develop. There are some areas in her game that she's continuing to grow and develop because she's trying to prep herself for that. She's prepping herself to become that D1 player that she wants to be.
And how do you think someone like her feeds into the rest of the program? Because this past season, I got to cover Mounds View a few times. Lindsey Becker, Lizzie Calls, they were the dynamic duo, and maybe they didn't win every game, but they were more competitive. I know they had that big win over Cretin when Lindsey had the triple-double, if I recall. So to see someone take that leadership role the way she has, how do you think that could spread to the rest of the program? Seeing what she's accomplished and perhaps taking part of that into their own skill set.
I will say this about Lindsey. Lindsey is a celebrity among the young girls. Among the young girls that I train.
People line up for autographs?
They love her. They look up to her. They love her. And we
Any
have
endorsement deals in the works?
We have incoming freshmen who at first they were terrified to get on the pedestal that they put her on because of who she's been, not only as a player but as a person. Like, they were terrified. They were like, oh my God, like, I'm going to be playing with Lindsey Becker. That's how she's viewed in our program. I think because she's such an outstanding kid and a stellar athlete, she makes everyone around her better. I think she makes everyone around her better. She's a great kid. I cannot stress that enough. Lindsey is a great kid.
So when you talk about the younger Mounds View kids putting Lindsey on the pedestal, does that bring back memories of when folks did the same with you as a player, and they were excited to see this speedy Andrea who could swipe the ball from anybody?
It does. I don't think much of myself anymore, but it does.
Come on, you still have a school record in steals.
I know.
Own it. Own it. You gotta
Thank you
own
for
it.
tooting my horn,
Yes.
because I don't toot my horn often enough. I will say that I do not toot my horn often enough. So I appreciate you for doing that for me.
Yes, don't be afraid to give yourself credit. You put in the work
You're
to
right.
get those
You're
11
right.
steals, just like Lindsey put in the work to lead the state in blocks the last 2 years.
Yes, she has.
And speaking of, I know it's hard to preview because it's not like the pros, or certainly not like the NBA, where you get all these deals about free agencies and trades, but how excited are you for the players coming in now that Lindsey's had a couple of years to showcase her abilities? You've had some time to get acquainted with this Mounds View program. How excited are you to send Lindsey off as a senior and then see all these kids who have that spark of inspiration now getting a chance to see what she can do?
I'm so excited. So with this group that's coming in, over the past couple of years, I've had quite a bit of time to work with them. So when I say Mounds View, we're building our program, we're definitely building our program. We have Lindsey, who's a senior, these incoming freshmen who are ready to go. I think overall, they're going to push each other. I have taught those girls, don't be afraid. I don't care what level you're at. You can be a freshman, you can be a sophomore, junior, senior. Don't be afraid to compete. When you come, you can be a freshman against a senior. Don't be afraid to compete, because if you don't come in competing, you're doing a disservice to your teammate. You guys need to push each other to get better. So I'm happy, like Lindsey now as a senior, and then we have these freshmen who they've looked up to her all these years, who are going to be coming in, getting an opportunity to practice and or play with her. It's going to be an exciting year for Mounds View basketball.
Do you have a game plan for competing against the likes of Stillwater? I imagine they'll be a favorite, and the rest of the conference is going to look a lot different.
It's going to look different, and I will
Irondale's
not reveal.
joining the group.
I will not reveal our game plans, but we do.
You're too smart for that. You're too smart for me to weasel that out of you. But what would you like to see out of Mounds View to take that next step?
What I would like to see more this year, again, I'm a big defensive person. I'd like to see us battle defensively. And I'd like to see us offensively be a running gun team. Let's get it out and let's go. That's what I would like to see.
And will Mounds View have the players to do it?
We're getting there. We're getting there. We do have some tools to do that, absolutely. And we're developing others.
What are some of the joys about joining Mounds View, your first coaching job? Maybe what are some of the joys about being a part of that process of building up a program compared to maybe if you were to join a Stillwater or Hopkins or one of the schools that have been established?
When I'm coaching, many times I put my trainer hat on because I am able to identify those skill development gaps. And so for me, it's been great as a coach to be able to pull one of my players aside and say, hey, like, you do a great job here, but if you want to take your game to the next level, let's focus on improving in this area. So for me, it's being able to look at my kids individually to say, hey, I know what your strengths are. I know what your weaknesses are. What do you think your strengths and weaknesses are? And we can put together some kind of game plan around that to help them become a more well-rounded player for our program, because they all bring something different. They all bring something, they're all unique. They all bring something different to our program, and we don't need everyone trying to do the same thing, right? So for me, it has been gratifying to see these girls come together as a group, bringing all of their strengths to the table and complementing each other's weaknesses.
Now, with Sarah Scally at the Gophers, I want to see if Lindsey Becker can match her range. That's going to be something I will be watching for this next season. And our mutual friend Latoya, we were talking, and it's tough to shut our brains off because every year is an exciting one. Now, you've talked a lot about your work as a trainer, and so you don't just work with the Mounds View players. I know you've worked with Alexis Pratt. How many high school athletes have you worked with, and how many teams do you think they represent? I know of at least 2, but I have to imagine more have come to you for your studious and tremendous work as a trainer.
Oh, high school students. So I work with a couple of players from Totino Grays. I had a kid who would travel in from Worthington, Minnesota. I worked with a couple of Stillwater's players, actually, both Alexis and Grace Cote.
Grace Cote, the sharpshooter.
But Alexis, her work ethic is unmatched. Her dad, I think, has been her sole trainer, and he did an amazing job with Alexis. That kid, I can go into some training sessions. Sometimes she's at the gym with her dad. She'll be there before I get there. I can have 2 training sessions, so 2 hours. I can leave and the kid is still in the gym. So it's easy. When I'm training a kid like her, it's easy because she does the work herself. I can tell her what she needs to do, why we're doing it, what we're working on, and she just goes out and executes. So I'd say as far as high school students that I work with, about 5 or 6 across the likes of Irondale, TG, Stillwater, and then Worthington.
So Alexis is really one of those kids, first one in, last one out.
She is.
And do you guys like joke around, and with Irondale too, that's going to be a situation where the kids that you train, you now have to go against them. I'm sure you're not taking notes on how to scout them, but how do you embrace that relationship? Because it's a friendly rivalry, I guess. So Alexis, she plays for Stillwater, and she's been a fantastic addition to that team. But I have to imagine it's not as much fun to try to stop her because in a way she kind of plays the game you do, where going for steals, running the fast break, and she's a sprinter herself, part of that great relay teams at North St. Paul and Stillwater. So when you train her and then when you have to go against her, what is that dynamic like?
It's still all love. It is still all love. Again, meaningful connections, right? When we're on the court and my girls are playing against her, we're going against each other. But after the game is over, we're shaking hands and it's, we're good. We are good. I'd say after they beat us by 40 points last year.
I think both times, yeah.
Yes, both times.
It didn't help that Sarah was hot from 3 those nights.
Yes, from the volleyball line. But after the game, Alexis came over and we still had a conversation. Grace's parents came over and said hello to me. So it's still all love after games, but we are rivals when we're on the court. I will see you after the game.
A true friendly rivalry. And speaking of Alexis, I know we've been hyping up Lindsey, and deservedly so, but Alexis is kind of another darling. At 5'3", you don't get a lot of respect when you're that small, but when you see her play, I've never seen so many folks rally around this 5'3" beast. I started calling her the annoyer, Alexis the annoyer, because I imagine you can attest to this. She just pesters everybody.
She does, and rightfully so. She should. Like you said, being 5'3", you don't get the respect that you deserve. So how are you going to get it? And she has found a way to do so. She is another kid that I think is one of the most underrated players in the state of Minnesota, and a kid that I love to watch because she plays both ends of the floor. She's a bulldog. I call her a bulldog. She is a bulldog on defense, but offensively, she is great. She is the quarterback on the floor. She's making the plays. She's making things happen. Also an underrated player in the state of Minnesota.
And I got to see her play at North St. Paul. Ashley was actually there before she transferred to Stillwater, and you could tell there was something about her that stood out from the rest of that team. I know North St. Paul has been rebuilding for the last few years, and she fit right in with Stillwater. I know Sarah Scally was happy to have her because everyone was keying in on her, and now Alexis and Liza are going to be the big names. And not only that, they're part of this project that began all these years ago that I know you're trying to accomplish at Mounds View.
Yes.
And I have to imagine you've told your kids, hey, this is where Stillwater began. Look where they ended up. This could be you too.
I have to be careful making those comparisons, but you're absolutely right. If you're trying to build to something, you have to take a look at some other schools and teams and see where they've come from to where they are now. I'm careful about making the comparisons because I love my program, but I do mention sometimes that, hey, if you guys want to be a championship team, you have to train like one, you have to practice like one. Take a look at a Hopkins. Take a look at Stillwater and where they've built from to where they are. So you're absolutely right.
What would you say is the biggest difference in culture compared to when you played in high school and what you see here in the Twin Cities?
What I've noticed here in the Twin Cities for some teams is that a lot of it's social. I play because my friends play, which is interesting because you can, in practices, you can tell. Like you're here because you want to have a good time, but you have a teammate who's here because they want to get a scholarship. That's why they're here. Down south, again, extremely competitive. Like you had athletes who wanted to be there and they wanted your starting spot.
They were coming for you.
They were coming for your starting spot. Extremely competitive. You pushed each other, you got better. And the culture here is, hey, we know who our starting five is. Like, it's that mindset. And it's not, I want minutes, so I'm going to show you up in practice, or I'm going to push you beyond your limits in practice because I want to take your starting spot. That's been the difference, or at least that's what in my experience, that's what I've noticed.
It is quite a stark contrast. And for you as a high school player, I mean, how nerve-wracking was it to meet with players or play alongside folks that wanted a piece of what you had built or what you have acquired? And maybe how do you think that motivated you to develop your skills as an athlete?
It keeps you on your A game. I appreciate being pushed by my teammates. I felt good knowing that I had someone who would compete against me every single day because they wanted my starting spot. It made me that much better as an athlete. It kept me on my toes. It kept me on my A game. But it made the entire team better in the process.
And another thing, I spoke about this with Alexis Lawson. You and I grew up without social media. It was just coming into form. MySpace, I think, had launched a couple years after you graduated. Facebook was still college only. Twitter didn't exist. YouTube was new. No one knew what that was yet. How do you think that has changed how people approach prep sports? Because growing up, the only way we could hear about you is if you made the highlights on the local news or the newspaper. Now you've got highlight reels, you have all these stations covering games. Well, I know I go out and I put Alex, our camera guy, thanks for putting up with this, putting up with us, Alex. I put all these guys through the ropes, but at the same time, it's fun to see all these players, but now it's a whole lot easier to get your name out, and in a way it can also run the risk of maybe driving up your ego when you see all the likes you get on Instagram and Twitter.
I agree. I totally agree with you. But I do encourage athletes to use social media to their advantage. If you are in the gym every single day and you're working, why not record a video of yourself? Because later that night you can go and look at it and, hey, what did I do wrong? What do I need to work on? But on the flip side of that, the ego thing. You have kids who are here and all these likes. It's the ego thing, right? I think that I'm better than what I actually am. And how do you have those conversations with kids? Like, you probably need to tone it down a little bit because you still got work to do. You still need to continue to grow. You still need to continue to develop. You still need to hone in on your skills. So there are advantages and disadvantages to this social media era.
And that could be overwhelming for teenagers. They're still developing. Research has shown their brains are still forming as far as understanding decision making. And so how do you approach that with your players? I'm not suggesting any of them are on an ego trip, but how do you approach that conversation? Because yes, it's cool to get all these likes and follows, but at the same time, it's also a footprint where if you're not careful, something can go wrong and it snowballs.
Yes, I do have social media conversations, more so with my younger girls, just to tell them to be mindful of, one, what they're posting, and don't let likes go to their head. I heard here recently that Instagram is supposed to be doing something where you won't be able to see like the likes.
They've been testing that in a few countries, removing the likes feature
I think
for that
would be a
reason.
Great feature. I think that would be a great feature, but I do have those conversations with my girls. Don't let this go to your head at all, because you can be doing all this fancy stuff, and then you're put up against a team that embarrasses you, and now your confidence it's shot, right? So you just have to be very self-aware as a player, and if you're not sure where you stand, go to a coach or go to a teammate and ask.
And especially with coaches embracing it more and more, they have that perspective and sort of that wisdom of experience, having been teenagers ourselves
Yes.
once, as hard as that might be to believe. Have you imagined or thought about how things would have been different for you if this era of social media existed? So if someone was able to clip up your 11 steals against Lane College or some of your greatest moments as a high school player, how that might have impacted you?
Oh, absolutely. I would have gotten much more exposure. Like you said, coming from a state like Mississippi, there are no like professional sports teams. Much more exposure than what I had gotten, for sure.
And this was before Mississippi State's women's team
Yes.
built themselves
Yes.
up. And then you have Arminty Harrington, who wasn't born there but grew up in Mississippi. So you have some examples now, but I have to imagine, you know, it was
totally
harder to,
different.
like up here we had Lindsey Whalen.
Yes. Yes.
And people were sad when she went to Connecticut, then came back and, well, it worked out pretty well. Continuing your discussion as a trainer, you know, you've mentioned wanting to provide a space for young women to empower themselves. You spoke about what led you to that job. What does it mean for you to be that platform for younger women to assert themselves the way they do? I know you've shared videos of Alexis training and some of your other players, and you know, even though the opportunities have increased significantly for women, you know, they're still fighting for that level of equality that we get from the men.
I agree. So I train here at the Shoreview YMCA. And before I started coming to that Shoreview, they wouldn't have young women coming in playing basketball. You would always see the men. And so now when I go in, they know me by name. They know every time I come in, like, how many girls are you're bringing in today? And yes, it is focused on women, but I do train young men as well, from probably 4th all the way up to 10th or 11th graders. But it is focused on women. That is the basis of which it was found. But it feels good for me to know that I'm serving as that person that I did not have when I was growing up. One, not only that, being in the Shoreview area, it's a predominantly white area, they get exposure to me. And I've had parents of biracial children that I train who have white mothers who've said to me, I can't teach my daughter how to be a black woman. And that's factual, you know?
Right.
Could you mentor my child? So that's where the mentoring piece came in. Like, you are a black woman who you've went to college, you've gotten your college education, you're a professional career woman, and you played basketball, and now you're doing your training on the side. I want my daughter to be exposed to you. I want her to see a positive example of a woman of color doing work in her community. So it feels good to me to be able to be that for the young women that I work with, regardless of what their color is, regardless of what their background is. It does feel good to be that person for them. After my sessions, there's like 2 of my kids, after every single session, she'll drop everything and just run up to me and give me a hug at least 3 times after the session ends, while we're leaving the gym, while we're in the lobby, and then when we get outside. And I love it. That makes me feel good. That makes me feel good. How
did you settle on the name EmpwrHER without the vowels? I'm guessing you didn't have enough money to buy them?
Hey, I love Wheel of Fortune.
That was my show.
Me too.
You know what? That should be another part of our challenge. You know, we'll do suicides, and then Wheel of Fortune will be the most unique face-off in the history of sports. But how did you come up with EmpwrHER as a name for your training business?
That's interesting. So I will tell this story, and it may be weird to you. I prayed about it. I actually prayed about it. Because for months, when I wanted to launch the business, for months I was like, what can the name of this business be? And I'm like, Andrea Dubose Basketball. Well, I can't do that because I'm getting married. It's going to be Hubbard soon. And I just prayed on it.
We got Hubbard Broadcasting here, so that could have been confusing.
I prayed on it. And I left the gym one day. I was walking up the stairs to my apartment, and I just feel like God spoke to me, and that was the name that popped in my head. I went and sat down and started writing things out that I wanted for my business. What was it about? What was my mission? What was my vision? I sat down when that name came to mind, and I wrote everything out, like business plan right then, right there. So I knew that God laid that on my heart to do. That's where the name came from, and I stuck with it because for months I struggled. But when that hit me, I'm like, This is it. And for EmpwrHER, at the end, the HER, all caps, because I wanted young women to know, like, this is about you. You should feel empowered. Boys play basketball, but guess what? You can play basketball too. You can do anything that you put your mind to. Anything that you put your mind to. So that's where the name came from, and it just stuck.
And on a related note, I guess when did you, I don't want to say take up the cause for women's rights, but when did you kind of get that spark to provide that space for women to develop their game like the men do?
I'd say when I first started working with the 6th grade Mounds View Basketball Association traveling team. Because coming in as, I remember myself as a 6th grader. I was probably, I would think I was extremely like an aggressive player in 4th and 5th grade. And when I started coaching those girls, it was different. I wasn't used to it because they'd be on a court and someone on the other team would roll their eyes. My girls would come off of the court crying. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? And I just kind of had to take a step back and I'm like, why do they respond this way? Why are they emotional when someone rolls their eyes? Or why are they not coming out feeling like they can be their best selves when they step on the court? And I started having conversations with the girls. And I quickly discovered it was a confidence thing. They didn't feel like they had the necessary tools to be able to do it. And if someone on the other team taunted them, that made it even worse. And so it's like, you're not going to have the confidence to do something if you're not working on it, if you're not striving to be better at it. And there came the skills. Hey, we need to start working on this. You're not comfortable doing a crossover? Let's do that. You're not comfortable shooting a layup? Hey, let's work on it. Now how do you feel? And as time went on, as we developed those skills for those girls, they got better at it. I did instill in them, though, you can't cry on my court. I don't care what happens, don't cry on my court. And so as 7th graders, I had the same group. They were a completely different team the next year. I remember one game vividly. One of my girls was hit in the mouth. And when I say it was a bad hit, lip split, blood everywhere. She looked over at the bench. I saw her tear up. And at that moment, I'm like, I didn't say anything, but I'm like, she needs to cry. Like, she needs to let it out. But she looked at me, and her mom went and got her. And she, teary-eyed, never shed a tear in the gym. Her mom said, she's like, I can't cry on the court because I can't let the other team see my weakness. Her mom said when they walked out of the gym doors, that's when she started bawling because it hurt. But it took a year. She built up the confidence, the toughness, the mental, physical toughness. It took me a year to instill in those girls. You can be strong. You can be aggressive on the court. You can do anything that you put your mind to. And that's where it all came from. I started working. I started building my business from that point after working with that group of 6th grade girls.
And you spoke about not having a curriculum per se or having a background in this. So how did you develop a regimen for this training business of yours? And how has that evolved over time?
So initially, working with younger girls, my focus was on fundamentals, studying. The only way you get better at doing something is you research, you study trainers that you look up to and you respect. And that's what I started doing. Lots of YouTube. I study Micah Lancaster a lot of I'm Possible training. Lots of YouTube. And I just started writing out plans. If I'm working with a beginner athlete, what are some of the things that I want to focus on? One of the things that surprisingly that I stress the most in my training sessions is footwork. Footwork is one of the things that I stress the most because I feel like that's what's missed the most here. You always hear people talking about ball handling. You always hear people talking about shooting, but you rarely hear people discussing the importance of footwork in the game of basketball. So that's like the foundation of everything that I do, and I build from there. And I just started writing out plans. You're a beginner, you're intermediate, you're advanced. And when I bring a client in, the first session is used to assess where they are. So it's a series of beginner level drills, and it's just me assessing where they are. I assess their shooting form. I always start with form shooting. I assess their form. Do you have the correct ball placement? When you're shooting, is your hand underneath? Do you have a little space in between? Are you releasing at 90 degrees? I assess all of those things, and then I can scale back to say, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I see that we can build upon or work on. But I also give the kids an opportunity to talk to me, to let me know what their thoughts are. And I'll ask, what do you think your strengths are? I let them share. And then I ask what they think their weaknesses are prior to the session starting, and I assess everything that they told me throughout the session, and I give them feedback. So it's that just the interchange of information and feedback from the kid to me and me to the kid. And I think that's where that level of trust and respect starts to build, because they come in knowing that she has my best interest at heart. She truly wants to see me get better. She truly wants to see me succeed, because it's not just about basketball. I ask about their day. I ask about their plans for the weekend, their friends, what they're doing in school. I build a meaningful relationship with these kids and with these parents.
Well, this conversation has certainly revealed your leadership skills, if nothing else. And footwork, of course, so important. How many times have we seen traveling calls because you forget to dribble? You told me once that you could see this training endeavor of yours as a full-time opportunity. How is this training part? How does that play into maybe what goals you have? I know you do a lot of work in the business world with Winfield, and you do a lot of athletics work as a trainer and a coach. Where do you see yourself growing as you continue this escapade?
Where I see myself growing, and I've thought about this a lot lately. So right now I have about 25 to 30 clients that I work with, but eventually I want my business to grow. I want to bring in trainers to train with me. So if there are any women out there who are interested in training, I would like for them to reach out so that we can start to build together. I want to host clinics. I want to have camps, the whole nine. I want it to expand even beyond Minnesota. I want a footprint in Mississippi, in my hometown. I want to go back to my hometown and work with maybe some of my old teammates who are still there so that they can start their own businesses, right? Empowering other people to be able to do the same. I want to empower my generation of women. If they are not business owners already and you're interested in training for basketball, why can't you start your own business where you are? You're good at it. Why can't you do that? You can. And I want to be the person to help, but I want to grow my footprint in different areas. I want to impact the next generation that much.
What would you say throughout your career in the sport of basketball, what was the moment that challenged you the most, and what is the moment you found most gratifying?
I'm going to have to think about this one. In the moment of basketball, what challenged me the most? That's an interesting question, because for me, I look at most everything as an opportunity, not necessarily a challenge.
Or for you, just a challenge, like, all right, here's something else I can defeat or conquer, right? That's how you look at it.
Me missing the layups.
Can you make layups now?
I can, and I can do it going full speed because I've learned to master the art of balance and body control. That was my biggest thing that coaches or trainers never honed in on with me. I never understood why. I know I'm going fast, but what do I need to do to be able to come to a complete stop, to softly, shoot a layup off of the glass? That's one thing that I haven't mastered it yet. Definitely improve. Progress, not perfection, right? So that one thing was probably a challenge for me. Hearing my coach tell me, hey, no, you can shoot a three-pointer. You don't have to shoot a layup,
and you're thinking, if only I had done this.
If I knew then what I know now.
I would have. You'd be a 10-time All-Star. You would be in Vegas right now in the All-Star game.
If I knew then what I know now.
But then we never would have met.
We never. I am happy with the life choices that I have made.
And again, what was your most favorite or gratifying moments throughout your experience with basketball? Could be a player, could be a trainer, anything.
Oh. So I'd actually say there was a game, maybe it was a semifinals game. We were playing the University of West Georgia, and we were down by 3. with, I don't know, maybe 6 seconds left on the clock. My coach drew up a play, and one of my really close friends, she's going to be at my wedding, a great shooter, and she's a basketball coach now, actually, drew up a play for her to shoot a 3 in the corner. We had 2 shooters on the floor at the time, her and then myself. Drew up the play, we hit her in the corner, and she was covered instantly. I inbounded and wasn't expecting to shoot, and I stepped in, and we were kind of high up the sideline. I stepped in, and this is like NBA range 3. She was covered and kicked it back to me right away, and I just let it fly. Hit it at the buzzer, and all I remember after that was just doing a backflip on the floor. Yeah. So I hit the 3, doing the backflip on the floor, and then I was like interviewed after the game. But I would say that moment there, having the play drawn up, but just reacting, because that happens so often. Close game situation plays, right? I don't think coaches practice that often enough. But that happening and just being able to react in that moment to carry my team over into overtime, and we ended up winning in overtime.
Was that the first buzzer beater you ever hit in your career?
Yeah, actually it was. It was.
Your first and only, or did you hit any more in college? Or?
Ooh, I don't remember.
But
Mike,
you remember
this was
the
so
one.
long ago. No.
Can
I
you
remember
still
that
do a
one.
backflip?
Yes, I can.
I didn't know that about you.
We should capture that. We should capture that. I was a cheerleader. I can
That's
do a
right.
back
You were.
tuck.
So you right. It's like you remind me of another friend. I don't know. Maybe we can, if we can pull out or something. Do we have
I
enough
can
space?
do it right here.
Yeah. Why not? Let's see.
Am I going to mess up the mic?
Well, why don't you? Let's take the mic off so you don't. And I'm going to. You take the mic off. What I'm going to do is I will hold it up. And Alex, you got a shot of this?
If I break my neck, we're going to blame Mike.
All right, so I've got the mic. I'm going to hold it right here. She's going to move the chair.
Can I do it here?
Oh, I think so. Let me just slide out of the way here. So here she is, Andrea Dubose.
I still got it.
She still got it. One of the speediest guards. All right.
You might want to step that way.
Okay, where do you want me to step here?
You can step in between the chairs or where.
Well, I don't want to go in between the chairs because then we'll be in your shot. So, all right, here we go.
We're going to crop that one. Here we go.
That was the warm-up. That was the warm-up.
All right, I'm ready. There it is. Still got it.
You still got it. Were there any other cheerleading tricks like cartwheels or?
I was.
Here, we'll get the mic back on.
I was actually a fantastic jumper.
Here, let's get this back on for you here. While she does, that works. While she does, if you want to sign up for her training sessions, you can do that at EmpwrHER.com. And she also runs her own clothing line, Lynn and Allie. I don't know if I would be the perfect customer for that, but if you're a woman looking for something to add to your fashion accessories, Lynn and Allie is the place to go. And they have a presence both on a traditional website and on Instagram and on Facebook. So a lot of ways you can connect with the projects that you are a part of.
Thank you. And for EmpwrHER, it's EmpwrHER.com.
But that's cool. You could still do the backflips. Did you ever show that off with the Mounds View kids or
I have
players?
not,
You
actually.
haven't? Oh, and now they're going to
was-
see this.
Yes.
They're going to see this.
That's no stretching. That's just on the spot. No stretching. No warming up. A little rusty, but you get the gist. You get the gist.
You get, of course. And yeah, so this is quite the experience. Well, now, if Lindsey or Maneki or anyone else from Mounds View, if they make a buzzer beater, I think they're going to expect you to do a backflip. The secret's out now. And of course, you've got your wedding in Jamaica. We'll try our best not to feel envious about that, the destination wedding of yours.
I can't wait. I'm going to be happy to leave Minnesota in December. So.
But you'll be coming back for Mounds View, right? You're not going to leave it, right? You're not going to leave those girls behind.
We usually have a tournament on the day after Christmas. My wedding, I'll be in Jamaica the 20th through the 23rd. No, the 18th through the 23rd. I'm going to go a couple of days early.
Well, Andrea, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for showing us that you still got it as a cheerleader and as a basketball player. And thanks for sharing your insight with us. This was a highly enlightening conversation, and I wish you all the best of luck as you continue to grow your business, both on the clothing side and as a trainer, because I know you are adamant about helping this next generation move forward, and props to you and everything you do.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
that is Andrea Dubose. You can catch her on the sidelines next winter at Mounds View High School. We'll see how well the Mustangs do in conference play. That does it for this episode of Mic'd Up Sports. For our crew, I am Mike Beaton. Thanks for watching.
If you'd like to support TSB Television sports programming, check us out at patreon.com/TSB Television or paypal.me/TSB Television.